First up is Jake Tapper. He's a senior White House correspondent for ABC News. He joined ABC in 2003 and has reported extensively on war from both here in the U.S. and the Middle East. The Outpost, an untold story of American valor, is his third book. It's an eye-opening account of one of America's deadliest battles in Afghanistan. So please welcome Jake Tapper. Thank you. Benjamin Busch is an actor, a photographer, a film director, and a U.S. Marine Corps infantry officer who served 2 combat tours in Iraq. His memoir, Dust to Dust, weaves together his pastoral childhood, his Marine training, and his deployment during the worst of the war in Iraq. Please welcome Benjamin Busch. And Brian Castner has served 3 tours of duty in the Middle East, 2 of them as the commander of an explosive ordnance disposal unit in Iraq. When he returned home to his wife and family, he says he began to struggle with an unshakable feeling of fear and survivor's guilt. The Long Walk, a story of war and the life that follows, shows us the toll war takes on the men and women fighting it. So please welcome Brian Castner. Thank you so much and enjoy.
Okay, I should just start. Great. Do I sit here or do I stand up there? I'll just sit. First of all, it's a real honor to be here at the Miami Book Fair. I want to thank everybody involved, especially Mitchell Kaplan, who first got me involved. It's a true honor to be on a panel with 2 veterans, Benjamin, who served in the Marines, and Brian, who served with the Air Force. I don't belong on a panel with people who actually lived through it, although my book is about war as well. And then lastly, there are some of the veterans who are in my book are actually here. Stan and Dave Roller are in the back there. And guys, thank you for being here. It means a lot to me that you guys are here, so thank you. One of the things I'm asked is why did I write a book about this one combat outpost in Afghanistan? It's not really my area of expertise. I'm a political reporter. I'm the senior White House correspondent for ABC News. And the answer is I feel like I didn't pick combat outpost Keating to write about. I kind of felt like combat outpost Keating picked me. On October 3rd, 2009, I was in the recovery room of the hospital with my dear wife Jennifer, and I was holding our day-old son Jack, and everything was fine. She had a baby, so that's why we were there. And out of the corner of my eye on the television, I heard a story that was just harrowing of this remote outpost, combat outpost Keating, that I'd never heard of, at the bottom of 3 steep mountains, 14 miles from the Pakistan border. 53 U.S. troops facing an onslaught of up to 400 Taliban. A horrific day. I held my son and heard about how 8 other sons were taken from us that day. And I just wanted to know more. And I couldn't get it out of my head. The coverage was all along the lines of, well, why would anybody put an outpost at the bottom of 3 steep mountains at the 14 miles from the Pakistan border? But nobody ever answered the question. And when the military investigated it, which will come as no surprise to Benjamin or Brian, they just said, yeah, there was no strategic or tactical purpose for that to be there, sorry, and moved on. And I was haunted by it. I wanted to know more. I wanted to solve this mystery of why would anybody put a camp there? And it became a mystery I had to solve. And then the more I found out about the outpost and more I found out about the attack on the outpost, I heard just some amazing feats of heroism, amazing acts. All 8 of the men who died that day died either trying to engage the enemy or trying to save one of their fellow soldiers. Every single one of the 8 who were killed. And their stories were just never really told. So it became a project that I wanted to tell. I got a book contract to write about it. The book originally was going to be called Enemy in the Wire, and it was just going to be about this last platoon, this last troop, 361 Cav, and their experience in this attack. But then I started hearing from troops who had served at Combat Outpost Keating at other times in its 3.5 years. First got a call from a former intelligence officer named Ross Burkoff, who was with 371 Cav. He wanted me to make the book bigger and more comprehensive. He wanted me to tell the stories of other troops who had served heroically and bravely and sacrificed so much. Lieutenant Colonel Joe Fenty and Medal of Honor, posthumous Medal of Honor winner Jared Monty, and Buddy Huey, a kid from Oklahoma who gave his life to save an Afghan soldier. He wanted me to tell their stories. And then I heard from Dave Roller, who's in the back of the room here. He served with the group after 371, 191 Cav. And they actually had a very successful year at that outpost. It started horrifically. It started with the death of two brave men, Ryan Fritchie and Dave's commander, Captain Tom Bostic. But as the year went on, they had a lot of success reaching out to the Afghans. And it wasn't only an outpost that was a story of failure. It was an outpost that for some time, from 2007 to 2008, was a success. So the more that these troops contacted me and told me their stories, the more this became a real calling for me to write. I felt like in many ways I had been slapped out of my slumber. I'd been covering the war in Afghanistan from the comfort of the North Lawn of the White House and the debates about troop levels, 10,000, 40,000, numbers that really in retrospect seem rather meaningless and cold. I'd been covering the fights between McChrystal and President Obama, but it wasn't until I really embarked upon this project that I came to any understanding of what it is that our brave troops, men like those on this panel with me, go through, what they sacrifice for us, not just them, but their wives and their moms and their friends, and what we as a nation don't recognize enough, which is that we're incredibly blessed to have people like this doing this for us, serving like this for us. And their stories are actually, even though we in the media don't cover them all that much, certainly not as much as they should be, and I should say also that's because the American people, as a general rule, don't want to hear them. They think the war is kind of a bummer. That these stories are not all depressing. These stories are in many ways very inspiring, and what people do for one another and the strength and resolve and bigness of heart that our troops have, even the ones who make bad mistakes and even the ones who screw up here and there, and that's certainly all part of the book, is something that we as a nation should be thankful for. So that's my eyes were opened, and that's why I wrote the book. I would like to take 1 sec, if I can, before handing over the mic to my friends here, just to read you one brief part of the book, if that's okay, which is, you know how the book ends, which is that the outpost is overrun, and then the U.S. Beats back the Taliban, and ultimately the U.S. destroys combat outpost Keating, which so many soldiers had died to build and to maintain and to serve at. So this isn't a spoiler alert, because you already know how it ends, but it's part of the book that to me is the most evocative. So, it was dark now. In addition to the rest of Sachs's group from 132 Infantry, Special Forces troops had also arrived and were clearing Cambish village and reinforcing observation post Fritchie. This is at the end of the battle. Captain Stoney Portis went up to the Red Platoon barracks, outside which he saw Lieutenant Andrew Bunderman's lanky silhouette. "You've done an incredible job," Portis told him. "I'm the commander now. You're Red 1. As Bunderman was relieved of his command, he exhaled and rolled his shoulders. "You've done an incredible job," Portis repeated. There weren't many places to sleep at Camp Keating that night, just the Red Platoon barracks and the aid station, and the ground around them. Few slept, and none slept well. October in Afghanistan. It was chilly. Some of the troops were wearing only t-shirts and shorts, having been woken up suddenly that morning, and then later having lost all their clothing to the day's fires. Bodies, living ones, were scattered throughout the small section of the camp that was still standing. Red Platoon troops crashed in their barracks while the bastards, that's the name of a platoon, the bastard platoon, slept on the deck of the cafe, huddled together. They slept on body armor, which wasn't all that soft. They curled up in the fetal position, redolent with this day's worth of sweat and smoke. Captain Portis walked outside the Red Platoon barracks. The dying fires crackled in nearby buildings. A glow stick flickered a blue light. Then Portis heard a sound. Someone was singing. "I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when." Portis walked into the barracks. Chris Jones and his guitar had both survived the attack, and Jones was playing Johnny Cash's classic Folsom Prison Blues. sitting in the middle of the barracks and moaning in his Tennessee twang with Zach Compass. Porter shook his head at the moment. The white noise